He didn't walk me down the aisle. He walked me into a contract. I was 22 when I realized the wedding wasn't for love. It was a transaction. My name on the marriage license was worth equity, leverage, and control. And the man I was told to call husband was just another pawn in my father's empire. I was born into wealth, but not into warmth. My father was the kind of man who thought hugs were a waste of time and birthdays were business liabilities. He built a construction empire from the ground up, one deal at a time, one favor owed at a time. And apparently, when the stakes were high enough, one daughter sacrificed at a time. My name is Elena. I'm the only child of Leonard Blake, founder of Blake & Sons Construction. Though I was neither a son nor treated like one, I grew up in boardrooms more than bedrooms. I learned to read balance sheets before bedtime stories, and I learned early on that in my family, love was conditional, and the conditions were profit. My mother left when I was 8. I don't remember the goodbye. I just remember the silence after. My father never mentioned her again, and I learned it not to ask. It was easier that way. He raised me with cold efficiency, like an investment. He paid for the best schools, best tutors, best everything, except presents, except attention. The only time he looked directly at me was when I impressed someone who mattered to him. At 21, I graduated with a dual degree in finance and architecture. I had dreams of starting my own firm. I told him over dinner one night, naively excited, stupidly hopeful. He barely looked up from his steak. "That's nice," he said, "but I have a better opportunity lined up." That opportunity was Ethan Calderon. Ethan was the son of my dad's biggest competitor. Their companies had been undercutting each other for years, until a new government contract came up, one so massive it could secure a legacy. There was only one problem. The state required all bidding companies to prove long-term stability. My dad needed a merger, not with legal signatures, but with bloodlines. So he arranged a marriage. I found out 2 weeks before the engagement dinner. Not through him, through his assistant, who handed me a custom-made invitation with my name printed next to Ethan's. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. When I confronted him, he didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just explained. "This is how families like ours survive," he said, as if it were weather. "You'll thank me one day." I didn't thank him. I just went numb. Ethan wasn't cruel. He was polite. Attractive even. But he didn't love me. And he didn't try to. We both knew what we were. A contract with a heartbeat. We got married in a lavish ceremony, attended by politicians and power players. I wore a Vera Wang gown and a 1,000-yard stare. My father shook hands with people who had once sued him, smiling like he'd won a war. And maybe he had. For a while, I played the role. I smiled at events. I posed for press. I even hosted charity galas in Ethan's name. But every day, I woke up feeling like a possession, gift-wrapped, exchanged, and shelved. The first small crack happened one night when I asked Ethan if we could move into our own home, somewhere smaller, quieter, away from both our fathers. He laughed. "You think this marriage is about us?" That night, I slept in the guest room. The next week, I started building a secret plan. I wasn't ready to escape yet, but I started listening, watching, learning. About the contracts my father was signing, about the clauses in the joint venture, about the blind spots in their power. But it wasn't enough, not yet. Then came the gala. Our 1-year anniversary. My father had invited the mayor. My husband invited his mistress. She wasn't discreet, neither was he. They laughed together over champagne, while I stood by the window, watching my reflection blend into the city lights. I realized in that moment I wasn't even angry. I was done. I left the gala early, took off the heels, wiped off the makeup, sat on the bathroom floor of our penthouse, and cried for the girl I had once been, hopeful, eager, and now completely gone. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just opened my laptop and began. That night, I submitted an anonymous bid for a dormant LLC. a small, forgotten subsidiary under Blake & Sons that nobody paid attention to. I knew it had potential. I knew they'd ignore it, and I knew it was my way in. I wasn't going to run. I was going to rebuild, from nothing. But first, I had to play the long game. And silence was my opening move. That was the moment everything began to shift. They just didn't know it yet. The betrayal didn't come with screaming. It came with signatures. 3 months after the gala, I walked into my father's office with a folder, plans for a sustainable housing project I'd been quietly drafting for months. I poured my heart into that design. Clean energy, reclaimed materials, a full proposal with ROI projections. I wanted to show him I wasn't just a name he could trade. I could be the future of the company. He didn't even open the folder. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Elena, I've sold the rights to all internal development projects to the Calderones." I froze. What? Ethan's father made an offer. We don't need your side projects confusing our focus. We're in acquisition mode now, not innovation. My project isn't a side. I stopped. It didn't matter. He'd already decided. What hurt wasn't just the dismissal. It was the way he said it, like I was a risk to be managed, not a daughter to be believed in. I left his office that day without another word. I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't scream in the car. I just sat in silence, hands trembling, heart cracked down the middle. That night, I found out the deal included my name. I had unknowingly been made co-signer on a contract that transferred my intellectual property to Blake & Sons. Under the guise of joint marital assets, Ethan had handed it over. My father had cashed it in, and I had no idea until the papers arrived. They stole from me and made it legal. I didn't eat for 2 days. I lay on the cold marble floor of our penthouse kitchen, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it was possible to feel this hollow when you had everything money could buy. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, private chefs. None of it felt like mine. None of it was mine. I thought of my mother. Where had she gone? Was this what she escaped from? By day 3, I got out of bed, but something in me had changed. I was no longer trying to win their approval. I just wanted my dignity back. I asked Ethan for a divorce. He blinked. "Excuse me? I want out. Of the marriage. Of this arrangement. Of you." He scoffed. "You think your dad will let you?" "I'm not asking him." That night, I packed a single suitcase and left. No driver, no lawyer, no theatrics. Just me, a rented apartment 2 towns over, and the sudden, unfamiliar silence of freedom. And then, nothing. No calls from my father, no emails, no questions. I'd been erased. It was like I'd never existed. They moved on seamlessly. Ethan traveled for business. My father expanded their reach with new projects. My phone was silent, my inbox empty. I expected anger, I got indifference. And somehow that hurt more. For months I floated. I worked part-time at an urban design firm, changed my name on paper, went to therapy, started taking long walks with no destination. I didn't talk about the past. I didn't explain why I flinched every time someone said the word family. There was one night I still remember vividly, early spring. I was walking home past a small construction site, no more than a few workers laying foundation. I stood there for almost an hour, just watching. The way they measured, the way they adjusted. It was slow, meticulous, honest. No politics, no power games. Just people trying to build something real. That's when the idea came back. The LLC I had quietly bought 6 months earlier, the one they'd ignored, was still mine. Still untouched. Still mine. For the first time in a long time, I felt something flicker. Not rage, not revenge, just resolve. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at the table. I was going to build my own damn table, and no one would be allowed to touch it this time. But I didn't post anything online. I didn't talk to the press. I didn't call old contacts. I stayed silent. Because I'd learned something. The loudest revenge isn't noise, it's presence, quiet, certain, unshakable. I worked every night on the new company. rebranded it, rewrote the mission, filed new patents under my name, drafted mock-ups of urban redesigns focused on community housing and renewable materials. It was all under a new brand, Iara Designs. It stood for Elena Reclaims Authority. But nobody knew that yet. I hired my first architect off a Reddit forum, my second through a mutual friend who'd also escaped corporate hell. We worked out of a basement with one printer and 3 desks. But what we built was real, clean, purpose-driven. By year 1, we had 4 contracts. By year 2, we had 12. And by year 3, one of those contracts came from the city, ironically, for a district that Blake & Sons had let fall through the cracks. My name was never on the front page, but my designs were. And the irony? They loved it. They just didn't know it was me. Then came the call. "Hi, this is Blake & Sons. We were hoping to set a meeting with ERA Designs about a potential subcontract on our downtown project." More side shit. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the screen, smile slowly creeping in. They needed me now, and they didn't even know they'd already lost. It's strange, isn't it? How you can spend your entire life chasing someone's approval until one day you stop. Not because they finally gave it to you, but because you finally realized you didn't need it. That was me, somewhere between the nights working on construction permits and the early mornings answering client emails. I stopped looking back. I no longer checked the Blake & Sons website. I no longer followed the Calderones' press releases. Their world became noise, background static to the one I was quietly building. Era Designs became my sanctuary. We didn't have corporate backing or luxury offices. We didn't need them. What we had was grit. Our first showroom was a shipping container with floor-to-ceiling mock-ups taped to the walls. Our second one was a garage in East Brooklyn. But people came, not because of branding or reputation, but because the designs made sense. We solved real problems. Affordable housing that actually felt like home. Energy systems that cut bills by 60%. Spaces designed around dignity, not just density. Clients didn't care that I wasn't a name. They cared that I listened. That was something Blake & Sons never understood. The power of empathy. By the end of year 3, ERA had won 6 municipal contracts. Our name was quietly circulating among young city planners, nonprofit developers, and up-and-coming architectural journals. And still, nobody knew it was me. I liked it that way. When you've been stripped of everything, your name, your voice, your dreams, you learn to value what can't be stolen. Your growth, your silence, your knowing smile when they speak your name, without realizing it's you behind their success. But then, the past started knocking. It started with an email from Ethan, short, cold, like always. "I'm hearing rumors. ERA is getting attention. We should talk." I didn't reply. A week later, I got a voicemail from my father's secretary. She sounded polite, overly so. "Mr. Blake is requesting a meeting. He'd like to discuss a potential merger opportunity." A merger? They were bleeding. I knew it before I read the article. A failed luxury development in Miami. Delays in zoning approvals. Lawsuits from subcontractors claiming unpaid fees. And their prized downtown contract? Transferred to ERA Designs. I didn't celebrate. I didn't toast with champagne. I just walked to the window of my small office, looked out over the city, and let myself feel the breeze through the cracked pane. It was happening, the shift, but I wasn't ready to confront them. Not yet. Let them squirm, let them wonder, let them reach. I had other things to focus on, like the mentorship program we just launched for women in architecture, or the young Latina intern who reminded me so much of myself it hurt, or the elderly couple we helped design an ADA-compliant home that finally let them live on their own terms. I was building something real, and real things take time. Still, I won't lie. When I walked into that city, planning hearings 6 months later, and saw Ethan and my father sitting in the back row, I felt a tremor in my chest. They didn't recognize me at first. I wore my hair different, no makeup, simple suit, no label, no flash. But when I stood up and gave my 10-minute pitch, flawless, confident, data-driven, I saw it. The flicker, recognition, then disbelief, then panic. I didn't look at them again. I finished my pitch, shook hands with the board, walked out calm, steady. And that night my phone blew up. A dozen missed calls, voicemails from unknown, emails with subject lines like, "Let's catch up," and "We may have started off wrong." Wrong? They didn't start off wrong. They designed it to go wrong, for me. And now that I'd rewritten the rules, they wanted back in. No! This wasn't a comeback story. This was a takeover. Still, I kept my voice low. I didn't post dramatic rants. I didn't leak anything to the press. But I did sign a new contract, one that gave ERA the rights to a multi-phase urban development project. Originally drafted by Blake & Sons, their name was removed, quietly, legally, entirely. And when the press asked ERA for a comment on the new project, I gave them one sentence. "We believe in building futures, not empires." The headline ran the next day. I got a call that evening. My father. For the first time in over 2 years, I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. "Hello?" Silence. Then, "Elena." He said it like he hadn't broken me, like he still had a place in my life to speak from. "I'd like to see you," he continued. "To talk, face to face." "I'm busy." "Elena, please." There was a time that word would have made me crumble. Not anymore. "Fine," I said. "Next Friday. You know where to find me." It wasn't a challenge. It was a warning. Next Friday would be the unveiling ceremony for the East Borough Project, ERA's largest development yet. Dozens of press outlets, city officials, architects from across the state. And I'd be speaking, not as Blake's daughter, not as Ethan's wife, but as the founder of ERA Designs, the woman they tried to erase. I arrived 30 minutes before the ceremony started. The venue was an old warehouse, refurbished into a clean, open-space community center, one of the very buildings ERA had saved from demolition. The East Borough Project had become a symbol of modern urban development done right, inclusive, sustainable, and people first. There were folding chairs neatly arranged in rows, a podium with my name on the schedule, banners of ERA's logo along the walls, local news cameras getting into place. I nodded to the crew, greeted the deputy mayor, shook hands with city planners, and then I saw them. My father standing stiff in a gray suit, Ethan half a step behind him, looking like he hadn't slept. Their faces were taut, expectant, but they didn't come forward. They waited. Good. I wanted them to sit with their silence a little longer. I let the others speak first. The architect in residence, the project manager, the housing director. They talked about timelines, design strategies, the number of families we'd be serving. Applause followed every speech. And finally, it was my turn. I stepped onto the podium slowly. No paper, no screen, just me and a microphone. 3 years ago, I began, this site was scheduled for demolition. Another high-rise, another glass tower meant for the wealthy. But we saw something different. We saw potential. We saw neighbors worth preserving. My voice didn't shake. I wasn't nervous. I was steady. We don't build for prestige. We don't design for power. We build for people. For stories that deserve space. For communities that have always deserved more than they were given. I paused, eyes scanning the crowd. And then, I let my gaze land directly on my father. Many years ago, I was told that my value came from what I could offer others. That my future was a transaction, not a choice. That I was a name to be signed away, not a mind to be respected. Silence. You could hear nothing but breath. But here's the truth, I continued. What they gave away, I reclaimed. What they dismissed, I rebuilt. What they underestimated is now standing in front of you. No yelling, no anger, just truth, heavy and cold like steel. I didn't say their names, I didn't have to. Everyone understood. The moment landed like thunder in a still room. Even the cameras paused. Then I smiled just a little. "We're proud to open East Borough today," I said, voice soft again. "Not as a monument to what was lost, but as a declaration of what we've become. Applause erupted, real, raw, but I didn't bask in it. I stepped down, shook the mayor's hand, and walked away from the podium as if nothing earth-shaking had just been said. That's when my father approached me. "Elena," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Can we talk?" I turned to him calmly. "Now?" "Meet." "Yes, please." He was pale, his hands slightly trembled, and for once, there was no authority in his voice, only discomfort. We stepped aside, into a hallway near the exit, away from the crowd, but not too far. I wanted him to know this conversation wasn't secret, just final. He started. I didn't know ERA was good. Mine, I finished for him. He nodded. You should have told me. I tilted my head. Like how you told me I was getting married? He winced. I thought I was doing what was best for the company, he said, almost pleading. For the legacy. You were, I replied. Just not for me. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. I'm not here for apologies, and I'm not here to rejoin your world. Elena, we're struggling, you're losing. I said it for him. He looked down. For a moment, the silence between us felt like a canyon. Everything we never said, every wound, every silence, every opportunity for love he had and ignored. I never hated you, I said finally. I just stopped letting you define me. He looked at me like he wanted to argue, but he didn't, because he couldn't. Then Ethan appeared behind him. Elena, we need to talk too. I looked at him. No hatred, no heat, just distance. You lost the right to say we a long time ago. He tried to smirk, to find some piece of the charm that had once been his shield, but it fell flat. He looked small now, so different from the man who once laughed in my face over dinner. Congratulations, he said. You played the long game well. No, I said almost gently. I stopped playing your game. And then I turned. I walked out of the hallway, out of their reach, and back into the light of the community center. There were people to greet, homes to celebrate, a future to keep building. Behind me, I could still feel their eyes on my back. But I didn't look back, because the best kind of revenge is moving forward with nothing left to prove. People love the word closure, like it's some perfect ending tied up in ribbon, where everyone learns a lesson and life moves on cleanly. But real closure, it's quieter, messier. It comes when you stop needing the apology. After the Eastboro ceremony, things didn't erupt. There were no scandals, no breaking news, no dramatic collapses. Instead, things simply shifted. Era Designs kept growing. We moved into a larger space downtown, hired more staff, launched our own think tank for sustainable housing policy. Our name showed up on more contracts, more city plans, more panels. But I stayed behind the scenes. No personal interviews, no splashy profiles, just the work. Always the work. I lived in a small townhouse I renovated myself. No staff, no entourage, just me, a rescue cat named Olive, and a garden that I spent too many mornings weeding with my bare hands. And I was content. Not ecstatic, not euphoric, but peaceful. Something I hadn't felt in years. I found joy in small things, mentoring young women who reminded me of the girl I used to be, baking scones with too much cinnamon, dancing barefoot in the kitchen at midnight because no one was watching. My phone no longer lit up with names I dreaded, and the silence that used to terrify me now felt like home. As for my father, Blake & Sons didn't collapse overnight, but the cracks kept spreading. More projects slipped through their fingers. More investors walked away. And as whispers spread about missed deadlines and broken promises, their reputation slowly eroded. He never called again. But I did hear things. That Ethan left the company. That my father downsized their headquarters. That the firm tried to pivot, but never fully recovered. Last I heard, they were bidding on a small suburban contract, 1/10 the size of what ERA was handling. And you know what? I didn't feel triumph. I felt release. I had outgrown the need for them to fail. They could live in whatever world they wanted. Mine didn't include them anymore. The past had become something like a scar, visible, sure, but no longer painful. And one morning, as I walked through one of our finished housing developments, a clean, quiet neighborhood of townhomes with playgrounds and solar panels, I saw a little girl ride her scooter up a hill, her father jogging behind her. She was laughing, wind in her hair, unbothered by the world. And I thought, that's the future I built. Not out of spite, but out of freedom. One afternoon, I got a letter. Real paper, handwritten, no return address. I knew the handwriting instantly. It was from my father. Elena, you don't owe me anything. Not this letter. Not your time. I don't know how to fix what I broke. I don't even know if I should try. But I wanted you to know. I see it now. What you've done. Who you are. Who I failed to love. I'm sorry. There was no plea, no manipulation, just words. I read it once, then again. Then I put it away in a drawer I never open. Because closure doesn't mean reconciliation. It means knowing who you are, even when they couldn't. That summer, I took a vacation for the first time in years. No agenda, no meetings. Just me, a journal, and a sleepy cottage by the lake. I spent my mornings drinking coffee on the porch, watching the light move through the trees, writing pieces of myself down in ways I never could before. And one night, as the sun dipped low and fireflies began to blink across the yard, I wrote this. They took everything they thought made me valuable, but they forgot I was the value. That line stayed with me. It became the motto of ERA's new scholarship fund. It became a mantra for girls I mentor. It became a quiet anthem for every woman who has ever been told she was a bargaining chip. So here I am now, not someone who won a war, just someone who walked away from it, untouched by the ashes. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been traded, silenced, dismissed. Maybe someone told you your life wasn't yours to live. Maybe you're still sitting in a room they locked from the outside. If that's you, listen closely. You don't need to break the door down. You just need to build a new one. And when they come knocking, let them hear nothing but the sound of your success on the other side. That is enough. That is everything. And that is mine.